The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure built by 20 different species over 300 years. Inside, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for a vote that should have happened decades ago. Today, they would finally remove the empty chair that belonged to humanity. 200 years had passed since the last human transmission. 200 years since Admiral sent her final message from Earth's orbital station. 200 years since entire human colonies went silent in a single week, leaving behind empty cities and abandoned ships drifting in the void. The representative raised its 3 arms to speak. Its translator box crackled to life. "We have waited long enough. The humans are gone. We must accept this truth and move forward." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some aliens nodded their various heads. Others remained still, uncertain. The human seat sat in the center of the council ring, untouched for 2 centuries. Dust had gathered on its surface, a thin layer of time's passage. "But we never found out why they left," said the ambassador, her blue skin glowing softly in the chamber's light. "One day they were here. The next, silence. Every human colony, every station, every ship in deep space, all empty within 7 days." The representative made a sound like grinding stones. "Does it matter? They are gone. Perhaps they killed themselves with their weapons. Perhaps a disease took them. Perhaps they simply decided to leave us. Whatever the reason, they are not coming back." An old scholar, his scales gray with age, spoke from his floating platform. "I studied their final transmissions for 50 years. There was no panic, no distress calls. They evacuated in perfect order like they planned it. Admiral's last message said only, 'We must go, forgive us, we hope to return.' But return from where? Return from what?" The council leader, a tall being made of crystalline structures, gestured for silence. "We have discussed this for 2 centuries. We have searched their worlds. We have analyzed every message. We have found nothing. Today we vote. Does humanity's seat remain, or do we declare them extinct and redistribute their territories?" The voting began. One by one, representatives cast their decisions. The voted to remove the seat immediately. The hesitated but voted the same. The abstained, still hopping for answers that would never come. In the archives beneath the council chamber, a young named worked alone. She was not important enough to attend the council meeting above. Instead, she spent her days organizing old records and forgotten data. Today, she was reviewing astronomical sensor logs from the outer rim, the boring kind of work that no one else wanted to do. Her screen flickered. Something caught her attention. A sensor array in the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge had registered a massive gravity fluctuation. The timestamp showed it happened 3 days ago. She frowned and pulled up more data. The sensors showed nothing now, just empty space. But 3 days ago, something enormous had moved through that region, something bigger than any fleet she had ever seen. The gravity signature was wrong, too concentrated, too powerful. Check the sensors again. They were old, probably malfunctioning. She should report it to maintenance. But something made her dig deeper. She pulled records from 200 years ago, from the time when humans were evacuating. Her blood went cold. The same gravity signatures, the same patterns. Right before the humans left, sensors in deep space had registered identical fluctuations. But those records had been marked as equipment failures and ignored. Above her, the council finished voting. Humanity's seat would be removed. The decision was final. Humans were officially declared extinct, and their former territories would be divided among the neighboring species who had already claimed them. The celebrated. They had taken 3 former human colony worlds and wanted them recognized as legal property. Other species who had moved into abandoned human space also seemed pleased. The debate was over. But the scholar remained troubled. He thought about Admiral's final transmission. He had memorized every word, every pause in her voice. "We must go. Forgive us. We hope to return." Hope to return. Not want to return. not try to return, hope to return, as if she knew they might not make it back, as if they were leaving for something dangerous, something important. But what could make an entire species abandon their home? The scholar had spent decades researching human history. They were not cowards. They had fought wars, survived disasters, and built an impressive civilization. They would not simply run away. They would not leave unless they had a very good reason. Burst into the council chamber, her young face panicked. She was not supposed to be there. Guards moved to remove her, but she shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. Something is coming. The sensors on the outer rim detected massive gravity fluctuations, the same readings from when the humans left. The council leader gestured sharply. The guard stopped. "Explain yourself quickly." His hands shook as she projected the data for everyone to see. 3 days ago, something huge moved through the dark space beyond our galaxy. The gravity readings matched the anomalies from 200 years ago, right before the humans evacuated. I compared them. They are identical. The representative scoffed. "Old sensors, equipment failures. We investigated those readings 2 centuries ago and found nothing." "But what if they were not failures?" the scholar said quietly. "What if the humans saw something we did not? What if they left because of something coming?" The chamber fell silent. The idea seemed impossible, but the data was there, undeniable. Something was moving in the darkness beyond their galaxy. The council leader's crystalline body pulsed with light. "Deploy scout ships to the outer rim immediately. I want to know what is out there." "And if it is dangerous?" the ambassador asked. "Then we will face it," the leader replied, "as we always have." But the scholar felt a chill run through his scales. If the humans had run from this thing, what chance did the rest of the galaxy have? Humans were stubborn, brave, and well-armed. What kind of threat could make them abandon everything? That night, more sensor arrays began reporting anomalies. Not just one or two, but dozens. All along the outer rim, something was disturbing space itself. Something massive, something approaching. And in the darkness of deep space, far beyond where any council ship could see, a fleet emerged from the void. Thousands of vessels, each one bearing markings that had not been seen in 200 years. Human markings. Admiral Song stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the distant lights of the galaxy he had left as a child. His face was weathered, his eyes hard from years of preparation. Beside him, Captain Park studied the tactical display. "The council will not be happy to see us," she said quietly. "No," agreed. "They will not, but happiness is not why we returned. We have 3 months before it arrives. That will have to be enough time to make them understand." "And if they do not listen?" Song's expression did not change. "Then we save them anyway. That is what we came back to do." The fleet moved forward, heading toward the galaxy that had forgotten them, heading home. The alarm systems across 3 solar systems screamed at once. Every sensor, every detector, every warning system activated simultaneously. Ships scrambled to battle stations. Defense platforms powered up weapons they had not fired in decades. Civilians on nearby stations panicked and ran for evacuation pods. Something enormous had just entered the galaxy. The Galactic Defense Fleet commander, unnamed, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His 3 hands shook as he tried to count the contacts. 1,000 ships, 2,000, 5,000. The number kept climbing. Every second, more vessels appeared as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "What are we looking at?" he demanded. His sensor officer, a young, could barely speak. "Sir, the readings are showing. They are showing human signatures. But that is impossible. The technology is far beyond what humans had 200 years ago." Wanted to call it a mistake, but the data was clear. The ships were marked with human symbols, old Earth languages, registration codes that matched human military designations from centuries past. But these ships were massive, covered in armor and weapons that should not exist. The largest vessel at the center of the formation was the size of a small moon. Its hull was dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Power readings from that ship alone exceeded the output of its entire fleet. "Open a channel," ordered. His voice was steady despite his fear. "Tell them to identify themselves and state their purpose." Before his communications officer could respond, every screen in the fleet lit up at once. The human ships were broadcasting on all frequencies. A face appeared, weathered and stern. A human male with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "This is Fleet Admiral Song of the Human Expeditionary Force," the man said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We have returned to our home galaxy. We mean no harm to any peaceful species. We request an immediate meeting with the Galactic Council. What we have to discuss cannot wait." Training told him to demand they power down weapons and submit to inspection. His instincts told him that would be suicide. This fleet could destroy every military installation in 3 sectors before breakfast. "Admiral Song," replied carefully, "humanity has been absent for 200 years. We believed your species extinct. You must understand that your sudden appearance has caused considerable alarm." "We understand," said. "We apologize for the fear we have caused, but time is critical. We need to speak with the Council within 48 hours. Millions of lives depend on it." "What lives? What are you talking about?" "That is for the Council to hear first. Will you grant us passage to the Council station, or must we proceed without permission?" It was not a threat. Song's tone remained polite, but the implication was clear. They would go to the Council station regardless of what decided. He could either cooperate or get out of the way. Made his decision. "You will be granted passage, but you must leave your fleet here. Only one ship may approach the Council station with minimal weapons active." Song nodded. "Acceptable. We will send our diplomatic vessel. Thank you, Commander." The transmission ended. Watched as the massive human fleet adjusted its formation. One smaller ship, though still larger than any Council vessel, detached and began moving toward the inner systems. The rest of the fleet remained in place, engines idling, weapons powered down but ready. On the Council station, panic turned to chaos. The vote to remove humanity's seat had finished only hours ago. Now humans were back, with a fleet that could conquer half the galaxy if they wanted to. The scholar who had spent his life studying humans felt vindicated but also terrified. He had been right. They had left for a reason. But what reason required a fleet of that size? The human diplomatic ship arrived at the Council station 12 hours later. It docked carefully, its crew following every protocol perfectly. When the airlock opened, a human woman stepped out, flanked by 2 guards in armor that gleamed like liquid metal. Captain Park was younger than Admiral, perhaps in her 40s by human standards. She wore a dark blue uniform with medals that meant nothing to the aliens watching her, but her posture spoke of confidence and control. She was not afraid. "Thank you for seeing us," she said to the Council Reception Committee. Her smile was diplomatic but did not reach her eyes. "I am Captain Park. I speak for humanity and for Admiral Song. We have urgent information to share." The ambassador who had argued against removing the human seat stepped forward. "Captain Park, welcome back, though your return has raised many questions." "I am certain it has," replied. "All your questions will be answered, but first the Council must hear what we have discovered." They led her to the Council chamber. News of humanity's return had spread across the galaxy in hours. Every major species had representatives rushing to the station. Those who had claimed human colonies were particularly nervous. Those who had simply mourned humanity's loss were curious. The Council chamber was packed, every seat filled. Some species had sent multiple representatives. The air was thick with tension and suspicion. Captain Park stood in the center of the chamber, where humanity's seat had been removed just hours before. She looked at the empty space and smiled sadly. "I see you have already voted us out of existence," she said quietly. "We expected that. 200 years is a long time." The council leader's crystalline body pulsed. "Captain Park, where has humanity been? Why did you leave? And why have you returned with a military fleet?" Took a breath. "We left because we discovered something. Something that threatened not just humanity but every living being in this galaxy. We detected it 203 years ago. Our scientists spent months confirming the data. When we were certain, we faced an impossible choice." "What choice?" the representative demanded. "We could warn the galaxy about a threat you could not fight," said. "We could cause panic and chaos, watching civilizations collapse in fear. Or we could leave quietly, prepare ourselves, and return when we were ready to help." The chamber erupted in shouts. Some aliens accused humans of cowardice. Others demanded to know what threat she meant. The council leader called for silence. "Explain this threat," the leader commanded. Activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy from above, a beautiful spiral of stars. Then she zoomed out, showing the dark space beyond the galactic rim. Something was moving there, something vast. "We call it the Void Swarm," she said. "An artificial construct, possibly a weapon created by a civilization that died millions of years ago. It consumes everything in its path. Matter, energy, entire star systems. It has been moving through the universe for eons, and now it is coming here." The hologram showed projections. The swarm entering the galaxy, worlds going dark, systems being consumed. The simulations were horrifying. "We spent 200 years preparing," continued. "We built ships. We developed weapons. We studied the swarm from a distance, learning its patterns. We transformed ourselves into something that could fight it. And now we have returned because the swarm will reach the galactic rim in 3 months." Silence, complete total silence. No one spoke, no one moved. Finally, the representative laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound. "This is absurd. A convenient story to justify your abandonment of us. You left us behind to save yourselves, and now you return with lies." Other representatives murmured agreement. Some looked skeptical. The idea seemed too fantastic, too convenient. Park's expression hardened. "I understand your doubt. If I were you, I would doubt too, but the evidence is undeniable." She transmitted files directly to each representative's personal system. Sensor data, mathematical models, recordings from deep space probes, evidence collected over 2 centuries by human scientists. The scholar studied the data on his screen. His scales turned pale. "By the ancient stars," he whispered, "this is real." "It is real," confirmed. "And it is coming. We abandoned our homes, our history, everything we knew to prepare for this moment. We became exiles to give the galaxy a chance at survival. Now we are back and we are offering our help. But you must decide quickly. 3 months is not much time." The council leader's light pulsed rapidly, a sign of deep distress. "If what you say is true, what can we possibly do against such a thing?" Captain Park smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had spent 2 centuries preparing for war. "We teach you what we learned," she said. "We share our technology. We train your ships and your soldiers. We stand together or we die together. That is why we came back, not for territory, not for power. We came back to save everyone." "Even those who took your colonies," the demanded. "Even them," replied. "The swarm does not care about politics or territory. It will consume worlds just as easily as human worlds. This is bigger than old grudges." The chamber remained silent as each representative processed the impossible truth. Humanity had not abandoned them. Humanity had left to become strong enough to protect them all. The council meeting continued for 18 hours straight. Representatives argued, debated, and demanded more proof. Captain Park answered every question with patience that seemed endless. But those who watched carefully could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes kept glancing at a chronometer on her wrist. Time was running out. Dr. Han arrived on the third day. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and hands that never stopped moving. She brought with her a portable laboratory and enough scientific equipment to outfit a small research station. Within an hour of her arrival, she had converted an empty conference room into a workspace. "Show them the recordings," Admiral Song had told her before she left the fleet. "Make them understand what is coming." The scholar was the first to visit her laboratory. He had spent 3 days studying the data Captain provided, and he had more questions than answers. Doctor looked up from her work when he entered. "You are the one who studied us," she said. It was not a question. "For 50 years, he admitted. "I never stopped believing you would return." "Then you are wiser than most," replied. She gestured to a screen. "Come, I will show you what we found." The screen displayed recordings from human deep space probes. The first probe had been sent out 210 years ago, part of humanity's exploration program. It had traveled beyond the galactic rim, into the vast darkness between galaxies. "This is what it saw," said quietly. The recording showed stars at first, normal, peaceful stars. Then something moved across the field of view, something dark. It was not a ship or a natural phenomenon. It was like a hole in space itself, a void that consumed light. As the probe watched, the darkness touched a star. Within hours, the star began to dim. Within days, it was gone, not exploded, not collapsed, simply gone as if it had never existed. "We sent more probes," continued. "Each one showed the same thing. This void swarm consumes matter and energy at a rate that should be impossible. We estimate it has destroyed at least 40 galaxies over millions of years." The scholar's hands trembled. "How do you fight something like that?" "We spent 200 years finding an answer to that question," said. "Come with me." She led him to another section of her laboratory. There, floating in a containment field, was a small object that hurt to look at. It seemed to twist reality around itself, bending light in impossible ways. "We call it a reality anchor," explained. "The swarm exists partially outside normal space. That is how it moves so quickly and how it consumes matter so efficiently. These anchors force it back into our dimension, where it can be fought with conventional weapons." "How many of these anchors do you have?" "Thousands. We have been building them for a century. We place them in hidden locations throughout this galaxy during our return journey. They will activate when the swarm arrives." The scholar stared at the device. "You planned this, all of it, for 200 years. "We had no choice," said softly. "When we first detected the swarm, we showed our findings to the council. Do you know what they did? They formed a committee to study our data. That committee took 8 months just to agree on a meeting schedule. By then, we had better projections. We knew the swarm would arrive in approximately 200 years. We knew the galaxy was not ready, so we made a decision. To leave. To prepare," corrected. Admiral gave the evacuation order herself. She was 80 years old and had served the council for 30 years. It broke her heart to leave without explaining why. But she knew that if we told the truth, the galaxy would panic. Species would turn on each other. Resources would be wasted. So we left quietly, and we spent 2 centuries becoming strong enough to save everyone. That night, the scholar presented Doctor's findings to the full council. He showed them the recordings, the data, the projections. He explained the reality anchors and humanity's preparations. Some council members were convinced. Others remained skeptical. The representative stood and declared that this was all an elaborate trick, a way for humans to seize power over the galaxy. "Why would we go through such effort for power?" Captain asked calmly. "We already have the strongest fleet in the galaxy. If we wanted to rule, we could start conquering systems tomorrow. Instead, We are offering to share our technology and fight alongside you. And what do you want in return? They demanded. Nothing, replied, except for you to survive what is coming. The argument continued for days. Some species, like the Ant, began preparing their fleets to join humanity. Others refused to believe the threat was real. The three other species formally declared they would not participate in any alliance with humanity. Admiral Song watched these developments from his flagship. Engineer Minyu stood beside him, reviewing reports from the diplomatic team. They are fools, Minyu said bitterly. They would rather die than trust us. They are afraid, replied. We left them once. They think we might leave them again. We came back to save them. They do not know that yet. They need proof. How do we prove we are sincere? Song was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. Bring Admiral to the council station. It is time they met her. Minyu's eyes widened. Sir, she is nearly 300 years old. The journey might be too much for her. She is the one who gave the order to leave. She should be the one to explain why. 3 days later, a small shuttle arrived at the council station. When the airlock opened, a very old human woman emerged, supported by walking aids but moving with dignity. Her hair was pure white. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. The council chamber fell silent when Admiral entered. Those who had studied human history recognized her face from 200-year-old recordings. The woman who had led humanity's evacuation. The woman who had sent the final message. We must go. Forgive us. We hope to return. She walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Someone brought her a chair, but she refused it. She would stand for this. I am, she said. Her voice was weak but firm. 203 years ago, I was the one who ordered humanity to evacuate this galaxy. I was the one who decided we would not tell you why. I am the one responsible for your anger and confusion. The chamber remained silent. Every representative watched her. I want you to understand the choice we faced, continued. We knew the swarm was coming. We knew it would destroy everything. We also knew that the galaxy was not ready to hear this truth. Some of you would have panicked. Some would have fought each other for resources. Some would have the threat entirely, just as some of you are doing now. The representatives shifted uncomfortably. So I made a choice, said. A terrible choice. I ordered my people to leave in silence. We took our ships and our technology and disappeared into the darkness beyond the rim. We spent 200 years preparing for a war that most of you still do not believe is coming. Why return at all? Someone asked. Why not stay safe in your hiding place? Smiled sadly. Because we are human. Because we could not live with ourselves if we let billions die when we could help. Because this is our home and you are our neighbors, and that means something to us. She touched a control on her walking aid. A hologram appeared showing a young woman, barely 20 years old, wearing an old human military uniform. This is my great-great-great-granddaughter, said. Her name is. She was born in exile, far from Earth. She has never seen the sun of her ancestors. She has spent her entire life training to fight the swarm. She is one of 50,000 young humans who have never known peace, who have dedicated their lives to protecting a galaxy that forgot them. The hologram changed, showing hundreds of young human faces. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, all born in exile, all preparing for a war they had never wanted. These children are willing to die for you, said quietly. Not because they owe you anything, not because they seek glory or reward, but because it is the right thing to do. So I ask you, please accept our help. Let us stand together against what is coming. That is all we want. The scholar was openly weeping. The ambassador had turned away, unable to meet eyes. Even some of the skeptical representatives looked moved. The council leader's crystalline form pulsed with a soft, respectful light. Admiral, your sacrifice and your people's dedication are beyond words, But some of us still need more than words. Can you prove the swarm is real? Nodded slowly. Yes, it will arrive at the galactic rim in 74 days. You will see it then. But by then, it will be too late to prepare properly. Then we will begin preparations now, the council leader declared. Those who wish to join the Human Alliance, make yourselves known. Those who do not, you are free to decline. But know this, if humanity is telling the truth, we will remember who stood with them and who did not. 7 species immediately joined the alliance. 3 more pledged support within hours. They and their allies remained defiant, but even they began quietly moving their fleets into defensive positions. Admiral returned to the human flagship that night. She was exhausted but satisfied. She had done what she came to do. Admiral Song met her in the landing bay. "You should rest," he told her gently. "I will rest when this is over," replied. "How long do we have?" 73 days. "Then we had better start working." The swarm's advance scouts arrived 12 days early. No one was ready. The warning came from a remote sensor station on the galactic rim. The technicians there had 40 seconds to send their distress signal before the station went dark. Simply dark. No explosion. No debris. One moment it existed, the next moment there was nothing but empty space. Commander Jin Lee was closest when the alert came through. His squadron of 20 human fighters had been conducting training exercises with a nervous group of pilots. There were good pilots, but their ships were outdated, slow to respond. "All ships, this is Lee," he transmitted. "We have contact with hostile forces. Squadron, fall back to the rally point. Human squadron, follow me." The squadron leader protested. "We came here to fight alongside you, not to run." "You are not ready," Jin said firmly. "Fall back, that is an order." He did not wait for their response. His fighter accelerated to speeds that would have killed an unenhanced pilot. The other human pilots followed in perfect formation. They had trained together for 50 years. They knew each other's movements better than their own. The swarm scout was unlike anything they had described in their ancient war stories. It was not a ship. It had no engines, no weapons that could be seen. It was simply a void, a hole in space shaped roughly like a spiral. Anything that touched it disappeared. Jin's tactical display showed 3 more scouts emerging from dark space. They were spreading out, moving toward populated systems with terrifying speed. "Target lock," Jin muttered. "Fire reality bolts." 20 human fighters fired simultaneously. The bolts were not lasers or missiles. They were pulses of concentrated energy designed to force things back into normal space. Dr. Han had spent decades perfecting them. The bolts hit the nearest scout. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the void flickered and it became something physical, something that could be hurt. Jin's squadron opened fire with conventional weapons. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. The scout died, but slowly. It took everything they had to destroy it, and there were 3 more still approaching. "This is Commander Lee to Fleet Command," Jin transmitted. "Scouts are vulnerable to reality bolts but require sustained fire to destroy. We need reinforcements immediately." Admiral Song's voice came through, calm and steady. "Reinforcements are on the way. Hold your position, Commander." "Understood, sir." But reinforcements would take time. Jin looked at his tactical display. The 3 remaining scouts were approaching a colony world with a population of 80 million, mostly with some settlers. They had 17 minutes before the scouts reached them. "Human squadron," Jin said quietly. "We are all that stands between those scouts and 80 million civilians. Standard intercept pattern. We hold until reinforcements arrive or until we are all dead." "Understood." 20 voices answered as one. "Understood, Commander." They flew to intercept. The battle that followed lasted 11 minutes and cost the lives of 7 human pilots, but the scouts were destroyed and the colony survived. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. The swarm was real. The threat was here. Species that had doubted humans now scrambled to join the alliance. Even they began reconsidering their position. Dr. Han worked without sleep, upgrading allied ships as fast as possible. She had developed a version of human technology that could be installed in non-human vessels. It was not as effective as full human systems, but it was better than nothing. We need to install reality bolt weapons on at least 5,000 ships, she told Admiral through a video link. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. We have the resources for maybe 2,000. Then prioritize the ships with the best crews, replied. We cannot save everyone, we can only do our best. She hated that he was right. Engineer Minyu led the installation teams. He worked alongside engineers and technicians, teaching them how to integrate human technology into their ships. It was delicate work. One mistake could cause a reactor overload. On the third day, a delegation arrived at the human flagship. They had come to ask for help. Their pride had finally broken. Captain Park met with them. The representative looked different now. His 3 arms hung low in a gesture of submission. We were wrong, he said simply. We should have believed you. Now our colonies are in danger and we have no defense against the swarm. Will you join the alliance? Asked. Yes, whatever you need from us, we will provide. Nodded. Then we will help you. Minyu's team will upgrade your ships. Dr. Han will provide training materials, but you must follow our instructions exactly. Understood. Understood. The alliance grew stronger each day. More species joined. More ships were upgraded. Training exercises became more coordinated. The galaxy was finally uniting, but it might be too late. Ambassador spent her days coordinating between different species. Some aliens had dietary requirements that conflicted with others. Some had religious beliefs that required specific accommodations. Some simply hated each other for historical reasons. Worked through each problem with patience and creativity. We cannot win if we are fighting each other, she told a group of arguing diplomats. The swarm does not care about your differences. It will consume you all equally. Slowly, the arguments decreased. Old enemies began working together, not because they suddenly liked each other, but because they had no choice. 40 days after the scouts arrived, the main swarm force reached the galactic rim. Every sensor in the galaxy detected it simultaneously. It was enormous beyond comprehension, a wall of darkness stretching across billions of kilometers. It moved slowly but relentlessly, consuming everything in its path. Pilot Sung was stationed on the rim when the swarm arrived. He was only 23 years old, born in exile like so many young humans. He had trained his entire life for this moment. Now that it was here, he found he was not afraid. He was ready. All units, this is Admiral Song, the transmission came through. The enemy has arrived. Remember your training, trust your, and know that humanity stands with you. Good luck. The Allied fleet numbered 15,000 ships. The human contingent made up 3,000 of those. The rest were from a dozen different species, all with different fighting styles and different technology levels. On paper, it should have been chaos, but the training had worked. They moved as one. The swarm sent forward a wave of larger entities, not scouts this time, but full combat forms. They looked like massive spirals of darkness, each one capable of consuming a small moon. There were hundreds of them. Reality anchors activating. Doctor's voice came through on all channels. All ships prepare to engage. The anchors that humans had placed throughout the galaxy activated simultaneously. Space itself seemed to shudder. The swarm entities flickered as they were forced into normal space. They became solid. They became vulnerable. All ships fire at will, Admiral commanded. 15,000 ships opened fire. The darkness lit up with weapons fire from 100 different species. Human reality bolts struck first, making the swarm entities physical. Then conventional weapons followed, tearing into now vulnerable targets. The swarm fought back. It learned quickly, adapting to their tactics. Entities began coordinating, focusing fire on individual ships. An entire squadron disappeared in seconds, consumed by a swarm entity that had slipped past their defenses. Sung watched his sensors as more and more allied ships went dark. They were winning the battle, destroying swarm entities faster than they appeared. But the cost was terrible. Thousands of lives lost with each minute. His squadron was ordered to protect a group of civilian transports that had been caught in the battle zone. They were too slow to escape, carrying refugees from a nearby colony. Sung moved his fighter into position, covering their retreat. A swarm entity broke through the defensive line, heading straight for the transports. It was massive, too big for his squadron to stop. But if they did not try, 5,000 civilians would die. "This is Sung," he transmitted to his squadron. "I am engaging the entity. Cover the transports." "Sung, wait," his squadron leader called. "That thing is too big. You need backup." "No time," Sung replied. His hands were steady on the controls. His heart was calm. "Take care of them for me." He accelerated to maximum speed, heading straight for the entity. His ship was small, but its reactor was powerful. If he could get close enough, if he could overload the reactor at just the right moment, the explosion might destroy the entity or at least slow it down. The transports would escape. That was all that mattered. "Commander Lee," Sung transmitted, "tell my mother I did my duty." "Sung, no," Jin's voice was pained. "There has to be another way." "There is not, and that is okay." Sung flew into the heart of the entity. His last thought was that space was beautiful when you were not afraid. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. When it cleared, the entity was gone. The transports escaped. 5,000 lives saved for the cost of 1. That night the Allied fleet regrouped. They had won the first battle, 53 swarm entities destroyed, but they had lost 2,000 ships and 30,000 crew members, humans and others, all gone. Admiral Song stood in his quarters looking at the list of casualties. Sung's name was there along with so many others. He had known this would be costly. He had prepared for it, but knowing did not make it easier. Captain Park entered without knocking. "The swarm is regrouping. Our scouts estimate they will attack again in 3 days, and this time they will send more entities." "How many more?" "Thousands, maybe tens of thousands. The main force is still coming." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at, "Activate the Prometheus protocol. Tell Doctor to begin final preparations." His face went pale. "Sir, that is the last resort, if we use it now." "If we wait, there might not be a galaxy left to save," interrupted. "We knew this day would come. We prepared for it. Now we do what we must." Nodded slowly. "Yes, sir, I will inform Doctor." As she left, Admiral Song turned back to the window, watching the stars. In 3 days they would either save the galaxy or die trying. There was no third option. The Prometheus Protocol had been humanity's most guarded secret for 150 years. Only a handful of people knew it existed. Even fewer understood what it truly was. Dr. Han was one of them. She stood in the control room of humanity's largest vessel, surrounded by screens showing calculations that hurt to look at. The math involved was so complex that only 3 people in the galaxy could fully understand it. She was one of them. The other 2 were dead. "Are you certain about this?" Admiral asked. The old woman had refused to evacuate, insisting on staying until the end. She stood beside, her ancient face calm. "No," admitted. "The theory is sound, but we have never tested it at this scale. It could save the galaxy, or it could destroy everything faster than the swarm ever could. Those are not good odds. They are the only odds we have." The swarm's main force had arrived. The sensor data was overwhelming. Tens of thousands of entities, each one capable of consuming a planet, Behind them, something even larger, something that the sensors could barely detect because it existed partially outside their dimension. It is a mothership, scientists had reported when she first saw the data. The swarm is not a natural phenomenon, it is a weapon, and that is the weapon's control center. If they could destroy the mothership, the rest of the swarm might collapse. But the mothership was protected by an army of entities, and it was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. The Allied fleet gathered at the galactic core, every available ship, humans, and 8 other species. 12,000 ships remained from the original 15,000. They formed a defensive sphere around a structure that humans had built in secret. It looked like a small star hovering in space, but it was not a star. It was a Prometheus array, the largest reality anchor ever constructed. When activated, it would force everything within 5 light-years back into normal space. The swarm would become fully physical, fully vulnerable, but it would also consume enormous amounts of energy. The kind of energy that could tear space itself apart if not controlled perfectly. Admiral Song addressed the fleet one final time. His face appeared on every ship's main screen, human and alien alike. "Today we face an enemy that has destroyed galaxies," he said quietly. "An enemy that has existed for millions of years. An enemy that does not negotiate, does not retreat, and does not show mercy. But today that enemy faces something it has never encountered before. It faces all of us standing together, human. And all our allies. We are not the same species. We do not share the same history, but today we share the same purpose. We survive together or we die together. There is no other choice." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "My people left this galaxy 200 years ago. Some of you thought we were cowards. Others thought we were fools. But we left because we knew this day would come. We left to prepare. We left to become strong enough to stand here today and say to the darkness, 'You will not take our home.'" Commander Jin Lee watched from his fighter's cockpit. His squadron had been reduced to 12 pilots. They were exhausted, wounded, running on stimulants and determination. But they were ready. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, coordinating communications between the Allied fleet. Every species had different protocols, different command structures. Keeping them organized was nearly impossible, but had created a system, a way to translate orders across language and cultural barriers in real time. It was working. Barely. Engineer Minyu made final adjustments to the Prometheus array. One mistake in the calculations would kill them all instantly. No pressure. The swarm approached. The darkness filled every sensor, every screen. It was like watching the end of the universe arrive in real time. Entity after entity emerged from the void, spreading out in perfect formation. Behind them, the mothership. It was so large that it warped space around itself, creating a gravity well that pulled at nearby ships. "Reality anchors ready," Doctor reported. "Prometheus array at 98% power. We are as ready as we will ever be." "All ships," Admiral commanded, "prepare for engagement. When the array activates, you will have approximately 3 minutes before the power drain affects your systems. Make those 3 minutes count." The swarm struck first. Entities rushed forward, crashing into the defensive sphere. Allied ships opened fire, reality bolts blazing across the darkness. The battle was immediate and brutal. Ships died on both sides within seconds. The commander fought like a demon, his ship dancing between swarm entities with impossible skill. He had learned well from human training. His crew followed his lead, their outdated ships somehow keeping pace with more advanced vessels. A squadron sacrificed themselves to save a human carrier, flying directly into a cluster of entities to buy time for the carrier to escape. The carrier survived. The did not. Their names would be remembered. "Prometheus array charging to full power," announced. "Activation in 30 seconds." The battle intensified. The swarm seemed to sense what was coming. More entities poured forward, trying to break through the defensive sphere. trying to reach the array before it could activate. Commander Jin and his squadron flew in tight formation, intercepting entities that broke through the line. They were outnumbered 100-1. They fought anyway. 15 seconds counted down. Admiral placed her hand on shoulder. Whatever happens, you should know that humanity is proud of you, all of you. 10 seconds. The mothership began to move, finally reacting to the threat. It accelerated forward, its massive bulk crushing Allied ships in its path. It was heading straight for the array. 5 seconds. We need more time, Minyu shouted. The mothership will reach us before. 4 seconds. Admiral Song made a decision. All human vessels activate ramming protocols, protect the array at all costs. Across the fleet, human ships turned toward the mothership. They accelerated to maximum speed, reactors overloading, weapons blazing. They would not let it reach the array, whatever the cost. 3 seconds. Jin Li saw what was happening. He saw the human ships flying to their deaths. He thought of Sung's sacrifice. He thought of all the humans who had been born in exile, who had never known peace, who had spent their lives preparing for this moment. 2 seconds. It has been an honor, Jin transmitted to his squadron. Then he turned his fighter toward the mothership and accelerated. 1 second. Activation, Doctor whispered. The Prometheus array fired. Space itself screamed. Reality twisted and reformed. Every swarm entity within 5 light-years was forced back into normal space simultaneously. The void became solid. The darkness became vulnerable. But the energy drain was catastrophic. Ship systems flickered and died. The array had pulled power from everything nearby. Allied vessels went dark, floating helpless. Admiral Song looked at his screens. Everything was offline. They had gambled everything on 3 minutes of fighting time. Now they had no power, no weapons, no defenses. The swarm entities, now physical and vulnerable, should have been easy targets, but the Allied fleet was paralyzed. They could not move, could not fight, could only drift. Admiral looked at the readings. Then she smiled. It was a sad, peaceful smile. The manual override, can you activate it from here? His eyes widened. No, you would have to be at the array's core, and the radiation levels there are. Lethal, yes, I know, started walking toward the airlock. But I am 300 years old. I have lived long enough. Admiral Waite called. There has to be another way. Turned to look at him. You are a good commander. You brought our people home. You made the hard choices. Now let me make mine. She was in the airlock before anyone could stop her. Her old body, kept alive by medical technology, moved slowly but steadily. She took a small shuttle, the kind used for repairs. She flew it toward the array's core. The radiation hit her immediately. She felt her body beginning to fail, but her hands were steady on the controls. She had been a pilot before she was an admiral. This was what she knew. Manual override activated, she transmitted. Her voice was weak. Prometheus protocol, full power, compensating for power drain. Now. The array surged. Power flowed back into the Allied ships. Systems came back online. Weapons charged. The fleet was alive again. And the swarm was vulnerable. All ships fire everything, Admiral commanded, his voice breaking. Make it count for everyone we have lost. 12,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The swarm entities, trapped in normal space and unable to defend themselves properly, began to die. One by one, they exploded or collapsed or simply disintegrated. The mothership tried to retreat, but it was too slow, too massive. Commander Jin Li's fighter, somehow still flying despite everything, fired the last of his reality bolts directly into the mothership's core. The effect was immediate. The mothership flickered, stabilized, became fully physical for the first time in millions of years, and in that moment it was just a ship. A very large, very old ship with systems that had not been tested in eons. The Allied fleet concentrated all fire on the mothership. Every weapon, every remaining missile, every ounce of power. The mothership's shields, designed to work in both dimensions simultaneously, could not handle being forced into just one dimension. They failed. The explosion started small, then spread, then cascaded. The mothership tore itself apart from the inside as its exotic matter reactors, forced into normal space, destabilized. When it died, the swarm died with it. Every entity across the galaxy simply stopped moving. They hung in space for a moment, still and silent. Then they dissolved, breaking apart into harmless particles that drifted away on the solar wind. The battle was over. The galaxy was saved. But the cost had been terrible. 8,000 ships lost, 400,000 crew members dead, dozens of colonies damaged or destroyed. An admiral, the woman who had given the order to leave 200 years ago, had given her life to ensure the order to return was not in vain. 5 years later, the Galactic Council met again. Humanity's seat had been restored, placed in a position of honor. But the seat was not the same. It had been rebuilt from metal salvaged from Admiral's final shuttle, a memorial and a reminder. Admiral Song, now retired, stood before the council. He was older, grayer, more tired, but he stood straight and proud. "The human colonies will be returned to us over the next decade," he said. "We appreciate the cooperation of all species involved. We harbor no ill will toward those who claimed our worlds while we were gone. You did what you had to do to survive." The representative stood. "Admiral, humanity saved us all. We owe you more than we can ever repay." "You owe us nothing," replied. "We did what was right, that is enough." Captain Park, now an admiral herself, had spent the last 5 years rebuilding diplomatic relationships. Former human colonies were returned peacefully. Species that had fought together now traded together. The galaxy was united in a way it had never been before. Dr. Han continued her research, working with alien scientists to understand the technology left behind by the swarm. There were secrets there, knowledge that could advance the galaxy by centuries. She would spend the rest of her life studying it. Commander Jin Lee survived the battle, though barely. He retired from active service and became an instructor, training the next generation of pilots. Human and alien students learned from him, and he learned from them. The old boundaries between species were fading. In the memorial station built in honor of the fallen, a simple plaque bore the names of all who had died. Human names, alien names, all equal, all remembered. Admiral Song visited the memorial often. He would stand before Admiral's name, remembering the woman who had made the hardest choice of all. The woman who had ordered an entire species to abandon their home so that one day they could save it. "We did what you asked," he would say quietly. "We came back, we saved them, was it worth it?" He never received an answer, but as he watched human children playing with and children in the memorial station's gardens, he thought perhaps it was. Humanity had left as refugees. They had returned as saviors, and now, finally, they were home.